Hey, good morning. I'm Patricia Murphy. It's Wednesday. This is Seattle Now. More than a quarter of people living unhoused in the city are sleeping in a vehicle. And Seattle's 72-hour parking law means that anyone stuck in one place is in a precarious position. An RV lot set up for people experiencing homelessness since 2023 is being reclaimed for a pickleball court complex. But as Seattle Times homelessness reporter Greg Kim explains, the development is more complicated than it seems. We'll hear more about that in a minute. But first, let's get you caught up. Maybe draw the shades in your living space today. It is going to be hot in Seattle. The National Weather Service is predicting sunny skies and temperatures into the mid-80s. If you're dreading the heat, just hold tight. There's a chance of rain tomorrow morning. Highs will be about 67. The federal government canceled a $50,000 grant to the Burke Museum at the University of Washington. The UW Daily reports the funding was initially awarded last spring for an exhibit called Woven in Wool. It features Coast Salish art. Earlier this month, the National Endowment for the Arts canceled the grant, saying it's not aligned with the NEA's priorities. According to the paper, the exhibit will open this fall despite the federal cuts. Under President Trump's new policies, the Burke Museum has also lost grant funding from the National Endowment for the Humanities. And the popular Tiger Mountain Trailhead is going to close for the summer for renovation. The trailhead closes June 9th. It won't reopen until November. Washington's Department of Natural Resources says the current parking lot is no longer big enough. The renovation will triple the number of parking spaces, add ADA parking, and increase accessibility for hikers and mountain bikers. DNR officials say the trail system will remain open. You just won't be able to park at the trailhead. Check back for more headlines on tonight's episode of Seattle Now. Seattle's only RV lot for people experiencing homelessness opened up in Interbay in late 2023 after several months of permitting delays. The program was designed to give people in RVs a safe place to park without having to worry about Seattle's 72-hour parking law, while also being able to speak with behavioral health professionals and move into more permanent housing. The lease signed by the Low-Income Housing Institute was for 5 years, but it included a 2-year termination option, which the lot's owner is now exercising. So the RV lot is being replaced by a 3-story pickleball complex with 20 courts. Some advocates are outraged. They say it feels a bit on the nose to replace homelessness services with a leisure activity like pickleball, but it's more complicated than that. Seattle Times homelessness reporter Greg Kim is here to break it down for us. Greg, appreciate it. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, Greg. Well, understandably, some people are mad that a pickleball court is going in where homelessness services used to be. And some might view this as a deprioritization of homelessness solutions. Help listeners understand.
Yeah, I think this article got some attention because it's kind of an oniony headline,
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of symbolic of what's happened in Seattle over the last decade or two, where low-income people might be being pushed out by people more of the yuppie class. I think that's what bothers some people about this story. But at the same time, there's no problem with people who are earning more money moving to Seattle, and there's no problem inherently with people wanting to play pickleball or build a pickleball court. And that was something that the operator of the RV Safe lot also mentioned. They've seen some of the frustration being directed towards this developer, and they're saying, no, that's not where it should be put. We should be commending this organization for temporarily allowing us to use this land when they didn't need to.
Let's talk about this RV lot now. How long has it been running? What were the conditions like there?
Yeah, so it's been running for a year and a half since the end of 2023, and people can park their RVs there. Staff will drain the vehicles of liquid to remove the environmental hazard, a shared bathroom, kitchen, hygiene facility, behavioral health staff on site. And the way it works is that people can stay in their vehicles and not have to worry about the 72-hour rule where their vehicle might be towed, and they'll stay there until a subsidized housing unit opens up for them and they'll move out of their vehicle. The organization running it will demolish their vehicle and then they'll move into housing. That's the way it's supposed to work.
All right, well, let's take a step back. How common is it for people to live in their vehicles in Seattle? And how different is it from just living on the streets in a tent?
Yeah, so amongst people living on the street in King County, about 27% of them are living in their vehicles. And that experience is a lot different from being in a tent. For one, there's a lot more security and safety, having solid walls, maybe a locking door. And a lot of people with that stability are able to hold down a job at a higher frequency than sleeping in a tent and having to move around as often. At the same time, there are some environmental and sanitation concerns that are raised by business owners when RVs or vehicles are parked near them. Sometimes if they stay in one place for too long, pests or rodents can start to form. Some of the conditions within these vehicles, officials say, are dangerous enough that they pose a threat to the people living in them. The other thing is that there are thousands of complaints lodged to the city every year. Since 2021, after a brief pause during the pandemic, the city started enforcing its 72-hour parking law, which means that vehicles can't stay in the same spot for more than 3 days. And so people whose vehicles that may have stopped running, they might be living in a state of anxiety that their home may be towed.
You mentioned almost 30% of Seattle's homeless population lives in vehicles. What is that actual number?
Yeah, so that's 27% of the unsheltered population. That means people not living in homeless shelters. According to the Regional Homeless Authority's point-in-time count in 2024, that was about 2,500 people living in their vehicles.
Okay. Now, this RV lot model actually converted 26 people into permanent supportive housing, Greg. That actually sounds successful.
Yeah, I mean, it is good for those people that moved into permanent supportive housing, but I would caution against evaluating any single homelessness program for the number of people they move on to permanent supportive housing. The number of people that we as a system, as a county, as a region move on to permanent supportive housing is dependent on the number of permanent supportive housing units we have, not the program that they came from right before that. And so evaluating this program's success on that number is, I would think, a bit of a false indicator.
Okay. All right. That's important perspective for people because, like you mentioned at the top there's more than 2,000 of these vehicles on the street.
Totally.
Okay. Now a set of pickleball courts is coming to replace this lot. It's quite a headline, but there is more to it than that. So let's talk about the plan. What does it mean?
Yeah, to a degree, this was always planned, right? This was temporarily available empty land. And this is a model that a lot of tiny home villages use, where they'll stay on empty land while the developer is waiting for permits from the city. So it would be empty anyway, and they'll stay there for a couple years. And so Lehigh, the organization running this, was always aware that this was going to be developed into something else after this period.
Still, these setups, like this temporary RV lot, feel precarious. Where do these ideas fit in if they're just temporary solutions, bouncing people around? Are these kinds of temporary solutions even helpful if people get upended and moved?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, if we could compare this model where homeless services get to exist for a few years at a time on a given location with a stable solution where these homelessness services would get to exist in perpetuity, obviously the latter would be better. But in Seattle, we don't have plentiful space, right? So in many cases, it's this precarious temporary model or nothing, right? That's the comparison that sometimes we are drawing. And so in that regard, having this service at all is better than not.
Greg, what is happening right now to the people who were currently living in that lot?
Yeah, that lot has already closed. And so the organization running it has moved those people into other shelters or tiny home villages and will be opening up a new safe lot from scratch.
Is there a potential for a new location here?
They say that they have identified a new spot with more space for more RVs and tiny homes in the location. They won't share where that location might be until a contract is signed. The only concern is that it's hard to get that dotted line sign and get a service up and running. The last one took almost a year to find that location. And then it took another 7 months of permitting delay because the RVs were going to be parked near a slope. Lehigh, the organization running it, says those issues won't be around this time. But until the next site opens, there are still question marks.
Greg Kim is a homelessness reporter at the Seattle Times. Really appreciate your reporting. Thanks so much, Greg.
Thanks, Trish.
Thanks for listening to Seattle Now. An extra special big thanks to our newest financial supporters, Janet, Kirsten, Janice, Saxon, Allegra, and Lin Feng. Your financial support means the world to us. Today's episode was produced by Vaughn Jones. It was edited by Caroline Chamberlain Gomez. Our production team also includes Brooklyn Jamerson Flowers, Andy Hurst, and Paige Browning. Greg Kramer does our theme music. Seattle Now and KUOW Public Radio are members of the NPR network. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you soon.